Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we are talking about The Way of Kings. We finished part 2 with chapter 28, and then we moved into the interludes with interlude 4 and interlude 5, wherein Dalinar comes to an important decision. We have a chat with Yasna, and then in the interludes, we meet some new characters, Risen, I don't know how you guys pronounce that, and Axies. Both interesting parties. Anyway, I'm Data, and with me today is
Joe,
Jack,
and Jamie.
So hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
Fear in the blade, the spirits of the fallen face, scorn and degrade, my legacy and name, blend in the code, the father duty long bestowed, burdened by the shame. When order dies, there will be no pride in victory. When honor dies, I will be denied by history. I give my everything, return the reckoning. Glare of the ghost fills my eyes. When honor dies.
So yeah, finished out part 2. I think we talked about expecting something major to happen. I guess you guys can decide if you feel like what happened was major at the end of a part. And then a couple of jumps to other parts of the world to explore new stuff, new characters. What did you guys think of these 3 chapters?
I mean, it does, I guess, seem major to the plot. None of us expected Dalinar to be like, I'm retiring. So that was, surprising. But I wouldn't say, it was a shocking twist.
What a
I was
twist.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I was surprised. I was not expecting him to retire. I figured we'd at least have, which, we may still have him around till the end of the book, but I figured we'd at least have him in his position until near the end of the book. But yeah, that was not the case. So I guess, though, it is the end of the Australians version of the book, the first part of the book. So maybe that's if you had to buy it separately like they have it, then you'd be like, oh my gosh, I got to go get the next one if you didn't buy both parts.
Oh, is this where it wraps up? We talked about
No.
chapter 3.
Nope.
No?
No,
Okay.
doesn't wrap up. Okay.
No, we still got a bit more.
Still, hang on, I'm trying to skip ahead to see what chapter we get to without actually spoiling anything.
Right.
I think it's here we go, chapter 37.
So 37 is just
Snoogans.
in the middle of part 3.
No,
Kinda
sorry,
like-
36.
Oh,
Yeah,
it'll be
36.
37 in my heart, Snoogans.
29. So yeah,
Now
part
I'm
3
annoyed. What if someone got you that, what if someone gifted you the book, not realizing it was a 2-part, then you're going to finish in the middle of a part.
Right?
That is a
No
weird
closure.
place for them to finish the book.
Yeah.
They literally just cut it in half.
It does say part 1 on the cover, but it's very tiny font. Like if dear old Granny picked this book up and thought, oh, this is an author my grandson likes, and gave it to him, they'd look at it and just go, Gran, you only got me half the book. She's like, what? My glasses couldn't see that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? I mean, I don't think anywhere in the middle of part 3, because part 3 goes from 29 to 51. I don't think any place would be terrific to stop. But if you're going to stop in the middle of part 3, that's not a terrible spot for it.
Okay, well,
All
Data knows more than we do, so.
I just jumped there and read it and end of 36. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, me not knowing that aside, it was a chapter. There's a lot of internal struggle there with Dalinar, a lot of back and forth, a lot of hitting things with a hammer, old flame coming to bother you, talking to your niece who tells you, hey, chasm fiends in this one picture are called Voidbringers. A lot of that. And then the interludes were fun, kind of interesting little tidbits and parts. We get to know a teeny bit more about Seth's people, so that's cool.
Mhm.
And then what was the other section? It was like
Axies.
Axies, dude.
Ares, as Joe calls him.
Yeah, Ares, my new favorite character in this book. He seems
Holy
like a lot
shit,
of
Sexy Drifter has been displaced.
no in this book.
Yeah,
Well,
Sexy Drifter hasn't shown up in this book, maybe. We don't know for sure.
yeah, I think it might be the Wit, but we don't know for sure. He's definitely my favorite known character in the book so far. That interlude was amazing. I hope that's not the only I hope that's not the only part we get with him, because that was fantastic. Yeah, and so even though we didn't get to see Shallan, nice to know that she's hanging out with Jasna, drawing pictures. Good stuff. Excited to get into the next part and see what comes next. I know the interlude after this is Seth also, so it'll be interesting to see what's going on with him these days.
Yeah, because at the top of the interludes, it tells you who the three characters are. I'd kind of forgotten that. So yeah, the third one is Seth.
Yeah.
But yeah, Axies is definitely it's an interesting chapter. We're kind of on the opposite end of the continent from everything else that we've had, so that's part of the interest for me at least. But also, it's just like his interaction with the homeless guy or whatever is hilarious, and it reminds me slightly of some of the scenes in Warbreaker on like in the alleys and stuff, where except those were depressing because Vivenna is like trying to live on the street, and this one's just funny.
Yeah, sure. It's good stuff. I like him. Excited to also one of the bigger questions that we've had, at least me, throughout the course of the book is like, how does this world work? And like here we have a guy that's actually trying to like catalog Spren and understand like why they appear and what kind and how many there are. So like that's pretty cool. He's trying to catch them all, He's trying to be the very best that like no one ever was.
To find them is his real test.
Yeah, he didn't have to train him, but
no. And then yeah, we had Risen. I think I'm gonna call her Risen, but she also interesting some character moments there. And I agree with you that Shinovar, where the Shin live, is it's kind of mysterious, and I want to know more. And so having this one give us a little more information was fun.
Yeah, even the fact that like their lands sound more like ours than the rest of Roshar, with their grass being normal.
Or stupid, as Risen calls it.
Right, dull grass.
Yep.
So I really liked the chapter with Dalinar. I thought, like Joe said, it was nice to see that, Shallan's drawing stuff with Yasna. Yasna's sticking her drawings on the fridge and sending them out to her friends. That's cool. Unexpected conclusion there to that arc, I guess. So we'll see where that goes. I'm like, all right. Is this going to cause more problems, or is this going to who fucking knows? But it was fun. I really like seeing Dalinar just working, using his hammer to and his shard plate strength to just like, going to dig the toilet pit, give the guys just a bit of a break. That was just a nice moment. It's like Dalinar really is the best of the Alethi that we've seen. He actually cares about other people.
So of course he needs to leave and not come back.
Yeah. The interludes, honestly, the first time I read them, I'm just like, the hell was this? Because they were, even the interludes that we had before, we had one where none of the characters in it were connected to the Stormlight characters that we've met, but because it had the Hoyd intrigue, and we had that guessing game going in of the three characters, which was like, our attention was honed on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the second interlude, which was Shallan's brother, so we still had a connection. And then the third one was Seth, who we'd already met. These ones, I'm just like, we actually just have no idea who these people are. Are they connected to what else is going on? Who knows? I think there is a bit of one with Risen. I think they sort of make some oblique references to Seth in there. But Axies is just like, no, this is just some other dude off doing his own some other thing, some other place. And it was fascinating. Like, I actually went back and reread these after reading the first time. And the second reread, I'm just like, okay, there's a lot more fun knowing that I'm not expecting these to connect to what else is going on at any point, which I guess is the point of the interlude. So maybe I'm just an idiot. But like the Axies stuff was fascinating, but it was just a bit like, okay, is this where's the relevance? Is this purely world building, or is this going to come back in a big way? So I guess that's what you're supposed to wonder when reading this.
Yep.
I think another thing, first time I read Axies' interlude, was I got to the end, it's like, I feel like I understand Spren less now than I did at the start of the book.
It's probably true, yeah.
Yeah. So I just don't know what to make of Spren. I'm glad Joe brought up the Pokemon thing, because if he didn't, I was gonna, because I've been playing new Pokemon Snap on the Switch again.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Very zen, very chilled out game. And it's just, oh yeah, okay, so this guy is just trying to study the Pokemon. There's like the one legendary out in the bay that he's trying to research and all that crap. So yeah, like interludes were good. They were better the second time.
I could see that. Because like you say, you don't get from the first set of interludes the expectation that it's going to be completely disconnected. And so I can see how coming up against it, and it's like, wait, what is any of this about?
Yeah, and maybe I should have expected it. Again, this is me, not the brightest. But just it threw me a bit, is all.
I think every set of interludes in this book may have Seth as the third in the set. I'm not sure, actually.
Oh.
I mean,
It's been true of these first two, at least.
I think of the characters in the book, I think Seth is my favorite so far.
And we just haven't gotten to see much of him, so.
No, but what we have seen has been fucking awesome.
Yeah, it has. Agreed. But yeah, that's one of the things I like about the interludes is whether or not, they're going to be connected to things later. And obviously I can't mention if we'll see any of these people again or if any of it is relevant, but it gives Brandon, I guess, the chance to show you other parts of the world that aren't where the central part of our story is happening. And I appreciate like that world building aspect of it because I just like world building stuff.
Yeah. And that is very cool. And I appreciate like making it a world that lives and breathes beyond the main characters. I think that is very cool. I just wasn't expecting it at this point. I did see something popped up in just Instagram suggested stuff, and I was like, I didn't click on it because I'm like, well, this could be spoiler ridden, but it was an interview with Henry Cavill, and it was asking, like, what's your favorite book series to read? And he said, I love the Stormlight Archive because of the world building in there. So I'm like, all right, I'm starting to see what Henry saw.
Yeah, I think even before he gave that interview, I remember seeing people on like the Reddit subreddit post a picture from like a stream or something he did where you can see he has like the Stormlight books in the background and people are like, oh my gosh, he's a fan. And then later he says that. And of course, after that, whenever it's talking about casting for a Stormlight movie or show, they're like, well, you got to put Henry Cavill in there.
I mean, he could do many of the roles that we've read so far. He would absolutely kill it. Also, the man's like one of the biggest nerds in Hollywood, so.
Right.
Yeah,
I think
true.
The trouble putting him in here is that most of these characters are supposed to have like an Asian sort of skin tone and stuff. And so that's part of the debate in talking about casting this. Like, oh, well, you can't whitewash it. And it's like, well, but Rosharans aren't actually Asian culture. Like they're not from Earth. So they're not from a part of Earth, regardless of what they might look like. So would it be? And so that's part of, and I don't actually have much, I'm not invested in that because like I'm not really that into potential casting. Honestly, I kind of tend to agree with the portion of the fandom that says if they do Stormlight with the giant crabs, then anime or animation at least might be the way to go with it. Yeah. Yeah, so that is a topic, a frequent topic of discussion in the fandom when it comes to potentially casting.
Understandable.
I liked these chapters. I agree. Axies chapter was pretty fun. I like him. I enjoy reading how intoxicated can he get to bring out his, what ailspren did he call them in the end? It's like, man, okay, I hadn't really thought about having to research them. Also, the fact that they only show up in certain places and at certain times, I thought was really cool. I feel like the I can't remember the name they actually gave it, the one that turns up at the same time every day should be like Clockspren or something. I don't know. It seems very reliable.
Right.
Yeah, but I like that too. That was pretty cool. I really liked the conversation between Dalinar and Yasna. I thought that was like really quite well done. And it was nice to kind of build a picture of what was happening there. I thought that was a pretty cool conversation for them to have. And yeah, his decision, I mean, like, I didn't see it coming now. I didn't think that he would kind of step aside for Adeline, but I can sort of see how he's gotten there. He's tired. He doesn't want to really do this way anymore. He's really expressed that he's not happy with how it's all going. Didn't think he would just step aside, but you get to a point where it's like if you can't make like effective decisions for your people, then the responsible thing to do is step aside. Mm-hmm. Whether he ends up stepping aside, I guess, still remains to be seen. But we'll see what happens. But overall, good chapters. Still like reading it.
That you make a good point in that he's made the decision now and he seems to be intending to step down pretty quickly, but that doesn't mean that something couldn't happen to, change his mind, I guess.
Not over till it's over.
Yep. And I went back to look for the name of that spren because I don't remember it off the top of my head either. Let's see. It's called...
I feel like it had a really weird name, but I can't remember what it was.
Kusakesh or Kusasesh the Protector. And yeah, I mean... Clockspren but it doesn't pop up around clocks. It pops up like in the water in this one place at the same time every day. So I'm like, does the time have something to do with it? Is the place what's relevant? It's so weird.
Well, people are naming the spren, right? And they name it based on the fact that they probably named it based on the fact that it shows up at the same time, so you could set your watches to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they mentioned that, don't they? That they can set their watches to the spren.
Yeah.
What were you
Maybe
gonna say?
it shows up when all the moons are in a certain alignment with that particular area or something. It's got to be something that triggers that it's at the same time every day. There's got to be something constant, or there doesn't, and
That's
it's
just
not a
when-
spread. You never know.
Or there doesn't. Maybe not. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't.
I'd say it's just when his alarm clock goes off, that spren every day, and he gets up to go to work or
It's like,
whatever.
oh, gotta get up.
Yep.
Sorry, can we go back to that? It's like it's not a spren like thing you just threw out. It's like, oh, it's just some dude in a costume of ribbons.
Well, okay. Well, I will leave my thoughts on that till a bit later.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's get into these chapters. We have what is going to be the last bit of our letter. I guess that's a minor spoiler. As we get into part 3, it's not the same epigraphs anymore. And so the writer is saying, I have never been dedicated to a more important purpose, and the very pillars of the sky will shake with the results of our war here. And he says, I've never begged you for anything. I'm doing it now. Please help us, essentially. And yeah, that's the end of our letter. So it's if this is Hoyd, it says our war here. Like, where are we talking about? Is this on Roshar that this letter is being sent from? Is there a war that's about to be fought here, or that is currently being fought that we don't know about? I mean, there is a war going on between the Alethi and the Parshendi, but that seems not like what he's asking for help with.
Is this the war that the heralds were fighting in at the start of the book, like 5,000 years ago?
Oh, could it be a really old letter? Okay, yeah.
Oh, I mean, doesn't it like that war could still be going?
Oh, okay, sure, I got you.
Yeah, I tried to since we figured that this was from Hoyd based on the context, I wrote all the segments down onto one piece of paper to try to glean any information from it. I didn't glean anything.
Oh yeah, I said when we got to the end of this, I'd just read the whole letter. So yes, let's go through it real quick.
Let's do it.
If anybody else can pick anything extra out of it, this is our chance.
Sure.
So the letter says, "Old friend, I hope this missive finds you well. Though as you are now essentially immortal, I would guess that wellness on your part is something of a given. I realize that you're probably still angry. That is pleasant to know. Much as your perpetual health, I've come to rely upon your dissatisfaction with me. It's one of the Cosmere's great constants, I should think. Let me first assure you that the element is quite safe. I have found a good home for it. I protect its safety like I protect my own skin, you might say. You do not agree with my quest. I understand that. So much as it is possible to understand someone with whom I disagree so completely. Might I be quite frank? Before, you asked why I was so concerned. It is for the following reason. Addy was once a kind and generous man, and you saw what became of him. Race, on the other hand, was among the most loathsome, crafty, and dangerous individuals I had ever met. He holds the most frightening and terrible of all the shards. Ponder that for a time, you old reptile, and tell me if your insistence on non-intervention holds firm. Because I assure you, Race will not be similarly inhibited. One need only look at the aftermath of his brief visit to Cell to see proof of what I say. In case you've turned a blind eye to that disaster, know that Aona and Sky are both dead, and that which they has been splintered, presumably to prevent anyone from rising up to challenge Race. You have accused me of arrogance in my quest. You have accused me of perpetuating my grudge against Raze and Bavadin. Both accusations are true. Neither point makes the things I have written to you untrue. I am being chased. Your friends of the 17th Shard, I suspect. I believe they're still lost, following a false trail I left for them. They'll be happier that way. I doubt they have any inkling what to do with me should they actually catch me. If anything I have said makes a glimmer of sense to you, I trust that you'll call them off. Or maybe you could astound me and ask them to do something productive for once. For I have never been dedicated to a more important purpose, and the very pillars of the sky will shake with the results of our war here. I ask again, support me. Do not stand aside and let disaster consume more lives. I have never begged you for something before, old friend. I do so now." So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's quite a mouthful. Quite a letter.
Stop sitting on your ass and come fight the mean shard.
Yeah. So yeah, we talked about some stuff before, how maybe the 17th shard is somehow Kelsier. That was a theory we threw out because the Ghost Bloods were looking for him. So he doesn't like Bavadin, or what was the other name?
Race. Yeah.
Race. Okay. And we know Bavadin is
Autonomy.
Okay. So there's some other bad shard that Race is in charge of.
Dak is theorizing that it is Odium.
Odium, that's right. Because where did we hear the name Odium from again?
That was in
Lost
the
Metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, we got some feel like we got some threads there. So autonomy and possibly odium. And then I guess what's cool to me is like this has been in this book for so long, and like, but we're connecting it to threads in books that came out after it. So like,
True.
Yeah.
yeah, this is a really cool little letter. I'm excited to know like more. Doesn't sound like we're gonna get more, maybe at all in this book, which is too bad. But
that's how the book is going to end. It's like Dalinar's retired to like some nice little farm somewhere. He's like, my son's going to take things, and then like the wit's going to be sitting in the corner when he comes home one day and says, "It's like you've just been invited to join a higher cause. You can, like you don't retire on this planet." And Dalinar's like, "The fuck are you talking about?" And Hoyd's like, "Come with me.
Very Nick Fury. Okay.
We're going to fight a god."
Oh my goodness. Hoyd as Nick Fury.
It's going to happen.
Hoyd
there's
as Nick Fury.
There's also the reference
shard.
Now I just want to hear Samuel L. Jackson say Buscumber.
Yeah. Or Bovidin.
Yeah.
You gotta fight motherfucking Bovidin.
There's also the reference to "Let me assure you, the element is quite safe." I found a good home for it, which you guys were theorizing. That may be the first time you guys were like, maybe this is Hoyd, and that means this.
The stuff
Yeah.
picked up out of the well.
The Lorasium, yeah.
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 And especially because he said he's keeping it quite safe, as well as he would keep his own skin safe or something like that. And I was like, well, he's whatever it is, it's on him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I thought it also might be like shard play, like he got himself a set,
Yeah.
keeping it like his skin,
Mm.
Hard to cart that around with you, given what we see when Dalinar puts his on.
Well, I mean, Hoyd is practiced at using. He's clearly able to do things that we can't quite comprehend, so he might have knowledge of how to use it in a way that mere mortals don't.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. Well, we try to tease a little bit more from that letter now that we've reached the end of it. We are the chapter is called Decision. I don't know if I actually mentioned that, and which makes sense in hindsight after we've seen what it's about. We start with Adolin, Dalinar, and they are out inspecting the troops. Actually, first they're looking at a new bridge. We saw him give Teleb permission to try to design a man-carried bridge, but when they go over it, or they try to move one of their big siege bridges over it, it breaks. So like, yeah, that's not gonna work. And then she's like, I'm sorry, I wasted your time. And Adolin's like, no, maybe try again. This is just the first try. Let's maybe we can make the siege bridges narrower, or I don't know. And so she's like, okay, we'll try a new design and see what we can do. And that's when Dalinar has his question moment of like, why do you think they never made anything like shard plate for just normal working guys? Like, it seems weird that it's only for fighting. And Adolin's like, well, I don't know, maybe war is the most important thing. And Dalinar's just like, yeah, I mean, I don't like that answer. Like, if that's true, then kind of makes them jerks for never helping like the regular guy out with the shard plate. And then they move on. They got to inspect. And Dalinar has Adolin kind of in charge of doing these inspections. And Adolin definitely notices and questions it at one point. And Dalinar's like, I'm thinking about some stuff, you go ahead and take the lead here. And meanwhile, Adolin is also distracted by thinking about Malasha, the new girl that he's seeing.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, it's like if anything was gonna make me like Adolin, it's definitely not this constant like change of women. Like we at this point, the readers feel like Dalinar. It's like, how are we supposed to keep up with all of these women that he's chasing? Like,
Yeah,
why?
Yep.
Why? Like, it's just it's obnoxious after a while.
Well, Malasha, at least we heard about last time when he was like, Dad, no, I'm seeing this new girl. But after thinking about Malasha, he's like, well, of course, there is Danlin. I just met her, but I'm already intrigued.
It really just feels like he's just seeing them as women to date because that's what you do. He's not seeing them as people. And that's frankly uncomfortable.
No, yeah, I can agree with that. It also really calls into question, not just this, but a lot about him is like, if Dalinar's about to step down and put him in charge of their whole house, does anyone think Adolin is prepared for that? Crickets. Yeah, okay.
Some parts.
Yeah, he's really.
I feel like he
tag
could
team
step
it
up.
with his. Maybe I feel like he should tag team it with his brother. His brother probably knows more stuff than he's letting on.
Yeah, if they leave the martial stuff to Adolin and let Renarin handle the political stuff, they'll probably come out pretty okay.
That's a good idea. Good, solid team, maybe. We don't know that much about Renarin. We've never been in his head like we have in Adolin's a few times, so it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, but he seems pretty switched on.
Yeah.
Problem is, it's not going to happen because Alethi culture is so martial.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, that's the whole reason Dalinar's influence was fading, because he was trying to be less of a fighter.
And Adolin is not one for not fighting.
No. Like, his purpose in life is to duel people, for Christ's sake.
And you got Dalinar, whose purpose is leadership, and in the Alethi culture, that has often meant like leadership in war. And now he's trying to be like a different kind of leader, and it is not going over well.
Yeah. I just don't know, like, the idea of him stepping down just seems, at this point, doesn't seem super wise. I think he's just doubting himself so much that it's just like he thinks, well, my time's done. This is what I need to do something else. My son is right. I shouldn't be listening to these voices. And like, it just doesn't seem like his son and him since the beginning of the book have been arguing that like about what they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So like either Dalinar somehow magically thinks his son is going to change his mind about what he should do and how he should act as a leader, or he thinks Adolin should do whatever he wants to do. So like I don't really know which one it is, because like both of them sound kind of bad.
You probably don't ever want to just assume someone's going to change completely when you give them control of something.
Yeah, it really seems like short term it might go over okay, because people will see Dalinar, who they think is going a bit loopy, step down. They're just like, oh, we're going to get someone's sound of mind in charge. Adolin's a good fighter. So everyone's going to be like, all right, cool, this works for us. And then they're going to see what Adolin's actual leadership is like. Oh, fuck, we need his dad back.
Adolin has been wanting to like challenge Sadeas to a duel since the beginning of the book. And we know reasons why House Colin and House Sadeas like going to war with each other would be a bad thing for the kingdom. So yeah, how would that go when Dalinar is no longer here to hold him back? This kingdom might not last.
Mm.
He has a moment where he asks Adolin if he feels the thrill, and Adolin's like, well, I mean, yeah, who doesn't? And Dalinar's like, yeah, I don't know. And Adolin's kind of like not happy. It's like, why is he being so reserved? The way he was before, deluded but confident, that was actually better than him sitting here like thinking about stuff. Adolin is never.
I think he's feeling right, but I think he's also feeling guilty. He feels like he did this to his dad. Like his dad is acting this way because of what he said.
Well, that's probably partially true in that like he's thinking like Adolin told him maybe you need to think about this stuff some more, and so he is doing that now.
I mean, it's partially that, but also I think it was that moment. I don't know what you want to call it, clarity, fear, that moment that he had in the fight where he's like, what are we doing? This is disgusting. Why are we doing this?
Yep, the moment where he was not feeling the thrill of battle anymore.
Right.
And then they have a bit of a talk about like the shattered plains. It's like, what's going to happen when we're done here? Like, are people the gem hearts, I guess, will always be here. So I guess people will be here trying to get them. And if we keep capturing so many gem hearts, what's going to happen to the value of gems? And Adolin's like, oh, that's actually a really good question. I never thought about that.
Oh no, the market has been flooded with these friggin' crab heart gems.
Yeah. What are we going to do now with all these crabs?
Given that their entire economy is like gem based, like they use gems for purchasing, then that could be some real bad inflation, some crabflation.
Crabflation.
Zoidberg will be rich at last.
Yeah. Did my sandwich also appreciate in value? Oh please, oh please!
It didn't even refrigerate it.
Just as a sidebar, like I don't know what this says about me as a parent, but the fact that my 2-year-old daughter sometimes comes up to me and goes, "Watch Zoidberg."
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is a thing.
It was a proud moment for you.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was proud for Zoidberg too. He was thinking, why not Zoidberg?
You don't have to drag spines into this. Okay. So yeah, they're gonna review the troops. It's like Dalinar's like, Adolin, go review the troops. And then afterwards he's like, hey, you did a good job. All I did was walk down a line. Yeah, but the presentation was good. The men know you care about their needs and they respect you. And so they go to question the soldiers that Sadeas questioned the other day to find out what Sadeas asked them. And it doesn't look great.
It's not a great thing. No.
Like, we didn't tell him anything. We're not going to, rat you out.
It's but we didn't do anything.
He's like, I really didn't do anything. But they apparently think he did. Like, they think he actually did try to kill the king, and they're okay with this? I don't know. But really, it may be more that they don't like Sadeas because they're like, oh, we know that he's an eel, and Donald's like, that's a high prince, my man. Let's show some respect. And he's like, oh well, I mean, we didn't tell him anything to get you in trouble. We're not going to give that the high prince the rope to hang you, sir.
Yeah, even though there shouldn't be any kind of rope because you didn't do anything.
And I love that just afterwards, Aelin's like that they didn't help our cause probably, despite their ardor, or rather because of it. And Dollar's like, yeah. Interview them separately and see if you can figure out exactly what Sadeas asked them. And so that's when Aelin's like, okay, explain to me what this is going on. You keep shoving me out in front, awkwardly in a few cases, I might add. Like, what are you thinking about? And he says that he's thinking through a difficult decision. And while some guys might just like sit and think things out, it helps him to be doing things. That's how he thinks. And then a guy comes from High Prince Thanadal, apparently the last High Prince, except for Sadeas, who is left that he wants to approach about working together. And Thanadal does not even want to meet with him. He tells the messenger that if he's pressed, he should say, look, he knows what you're going to ask him, and he's not interested in cooperating with you, okay? And Donner's like, that's the last one. I guess Elhokar was right. I can't get them to work together. So on top of him like feeling unsure with all the other stuff happening, now he's failed at this too. So it's not his best day, basically. And then we jump to Dalinar's perspective, and in his head, where he's thinking through all this stuff and trying to figure out, what would a real leader do here? And he tells the guy, go fetch my warhammer. I have it waiting for me out at the staging field. I love that when they have to bring the hammer out on a cart because it's so heavy, and everyone's like gathering around, and he's like, oh, they think I'm going to do something impressive. Like they're all like, oh my gosh, what's he going to do with the warhammer out here? And then he has these guys who are digging a latrine in the stone, and he tells them to get out. He's like, you guys go relax. Off with you. And he takes his hammer and jumps in the ditch and just starts bashing the shit out of this stone.
Yeah, that's what he does. I mean, you're gonna beat up some stone. No, I get it. I often do my best thinking when I'm performing some kind of manual labor task. So I get where he's coming from. He just wants to like, he even says it, I think, at one point. It's like there's a certain sense of accomplishment that he's getting. It's like, he's been trying and failing at all of these big grand ideas, but he can't fail at this. Like he's creating something, even if it's a latrine, it's like it's something. He's seeing progress. Progress is happening. He can visually see the difference that he's making and know that he's, making some kind of difference in this small little part of his war camp. It's like, I think he needed it. He needed this opportunity to be able to just like do something, and it means something to him.
Yeah, he has this physical evidence that he's accomplished something. I agree. That's I don't know if you guys picked up on it before, and I can talk about it now that we've seen the Ricin interlude. They don't have soil on most of this planet. Everything that we've seen is on rock. Like there's not like they're not growing crops in a field of soil. They're growing these rock buds that grow on the rock. And so that's part of before we even started, when I was like, don't assume what you're seeing here, because the grass is not growing out of soil like the dumb grass that we see in Shinovar or just outside of Shinovar. It's all just rock, and it's always described that way. It's like even all the way back to that first battle we saw with Kaladin and his spearmen. They're looking at the field with like, it's got boulders, it's got all sorts of rocks on it, and they're picking the best spot among the rocks to like make their defense. And so it's not a major of major importance to the plot, but I think it really changes how you picture things. And that's why these guys are digging when these guys are digging a latrine, they're not like, they don't have shovels, they're not digging in the dirt. There is no dirt. They're digging in the rock to make a latrine. And so it's just I think it adds like a dimension to this world that's just like everything is hard. Like I don't mean like difficult. I mean like it's all just solid and hard, and it kind of makes the world feel harsher to me.
Yeah, I don't think until we got to the interlude, I don't think I understood that.
Mm-hmm.
It's also interesting to me that like they don't, the Shin people are like, no, it's bad to cut things out of rock or to like cut the rock or disturb the rock. But obviously they have a very like symbiotic relationship with the land. Like they treat their farmers with these like super high importance, and so to me that speaks of also like a respect and symbiotic relationship with the land itself. So maybe that has something to do with the fact that they like are like, yeah, you don't do that, you don't break rock. So I don't know.
All the way back to the not the prelude,
Prologue?
the prologue, yeah. When Seth is walking through the palace to kill the king, he thinks about like how he's walking on stones and that's sacrilegious or whatever, which probably seemed bizarre at the time. And now maybe it makes sense seeing like in Shin, they have soil that they're walking on. Everywhere else, they're walking on stone. So yeah, just something to help you with your mental picture of the world. So thinking about killing is starting to sicken Dalinar even worse since that last bridge assault where we saw him kind of get hit with these waves of like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And this is part of what he's considering as he's just hammering the stone. Sometimes he'll cut like along the edges or down the middle with his shard blade to kind of separate it, and then he just bashes it into bits so that can to get it out. So this is just like talking about manual labor. This is about as manual labor as I feel like it can get, swinging a giant hammer at rock. Not even I on some level, pickaxe is different because it's at least got a point that you're like specifically chipping at something. He's just bashing it to the point that when we get to the end of this section, like the haft of like the metal haft of this giant warhammer is bent from bashing the rock over and over. And he's thinking about the other high princes, about Elhokar, about the codes. Someone has to start. Someone has to be the model for good behavior, basically. And that's a reason not to abdicate. Even if I'm crazy, how I'm doing things is better than the way that Sadeas or the others do them. So maybe it's worth staying just to be a model of not being a dick, essentially. Like all of like Sadeas in particular. Like if I can show them that this is a better way to do things, maybe it'll have an effect, even if it means I'm insane. And he thinks about his younger years, and he thinks he had been a tyrant and a warmonger. Could twilight years spent pretending to follow the precepts of better men erase a lifetime of butchery? Which, that's a fair question.
This is the debate I hear online about Uncle Iroh a lot.
Yeah, it kind of fits, right?
Like the most kind-hearted character in that show, but then you look into his backstory and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. He was a general for one of the worst armies in history. I'm like, ooh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we have no idea the kind of stuff that he might have done as a general.
Yeah.
And
I like to think he was like, you know, the good teammate in that time, but
right. You'd like to think that he's the guy who's not just killing people for no reason, women and children or something like that, but
yeah.
You imagine a successful general in that army was probably not doing good things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think until his son died, he probably wasn't a good dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you know, spoiler for a show that came out in 2004, but whatever.
Well, and I mean, it's interesting that guy who potentially was a real bad guy and went through kind of call it a spiritual awakening since it involved going to the spirit world.
Yeah.
But and then he's the one who guides his nephew then, who I think is one of the most successful that we've seen on TV of someone going from the bad guy to a protagonist in like a believable arc. Good arc.
100%. Well, it's one of the things that makes that show so brilliant.
Yeah. So that's it. You have someone who kind of went through maybe a similar arc before the beginning of the show to guide Zuko through that. And so it's interesting.
Yeah.
Dalinar doesn't seem to have that unless you count his dead brother, who maybe had a similar arc before his death.
Yeah, he didn't really guide him through it though.
Yeah.
Or planted the seeds.
Or maybe who or whatever is sending him these visions. Maybe that's who is actually responsible. And I do like that we have everyone's just like staring at Dalinar as he's doing this work. Like all the workers who were here doing this and all these other people who gathered to see what kind of cool stuff he was going to do. They're just like staring. And eventually Teleb decides letting them all stare down at him was not respectful. Ordered them back to their separate duties, including ordering the workers to sit in the shade and converse in a lighthearted manner.
It's such like a random thing. Like my CO is like, yo, go sit over there and just like chat about the weather, but like do it lightheartedly.
Yeah, that's an order. I'm not making a suggestion. Do it.
Don't let me hear you talking negatively about the weather.
And he's like, man, the work feels even better once I'm alone, just me and the rocks and the hammer. And we find out a little bit about how the latrines work, where it's slanted so that all the stuff kind of goes off to one end, and then they soul cast it into smoke once every few months. Which, all right, I mean that's a way to do it.
Yeah, I bet that day when they soul cast it, it smells really great in the camp. They're like, oh wow, the shit smell is gone. Hooray!
Well, no, they have what does it say? They cover it with oiled and tarred boards to seal in the scent, so it's okay.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that works perfectly, and you don't smell anything.
And there's one point where he thinks, "I'm sorry, brother," and that's kind of like there's not a lot of preface or even follow up to that. It's just like as he's thinking through his thoughts, that just pops in there, and it maybe shows you that kind of underneath it all, that's still at the heart of what's going on is what happened to his brother. And then you hear a voice saying, "Wouldn't the blade be more efficient?" And Dalinar looks up, and there's Navani. I like that she has two women, not her own wards, but ones that she borrowed from some other light-eyed women in camp. Like, I need some girls. Let me have yours and one of yours. You don't have a problem with that, right? Okay, good. And she's like, I wouldn't presume to make judgments. Hitting things is a masculine art. But don't you have a sword that can cut through stone as easily as I once heard it described to me as a high storm blows over a Herdazian? And he explains that shard blades are too good at cutting. They cut a very thin cut into this rock, and it's still difficult to like lift that out because of how it presses against the rock around it. So he slices it and then dices it. Bashes it. It's a different thing. And while they have the conversation, he just continues banging with his hammer. And she's like, "Are you gonna apologize for missing our appointment?" "Oh, right."
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was supposed to meet up with you.
Because she basically forced the appointment on him. She's like, "Okay, we're gonna meet at this time." And he never told, like, I guess his people about it, so he didn't put it on his calendar or whatever.
We didn't put it on the calendar, boss.
And now he
forgot because I really didn't want to go.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't really agree to the appointment, to be fair. So,
yeah,
but no,
and I don't really want to go. You're making me go.
You check with my secretary, you can see that they never wrote anything down, so technically we never had an appointment. So
yeah, you didn't call my people to talk to your people, so
here's my hammer. Go pound some rocks.
But no, he doesn't say any of things that he could probably rightfully pull out there as an excuse. He just goes, "I'm truly sorry. I've had some difficult things to consider, but that does not excuse me for getting you." And she's like, "I know. I'll ponder a way to let you make up for the lapse. But for now, you should know that one of your span reeds is flashing." Which I think we may have had span reeds mentioned before now, but this is the chapter where we... Sorry, go ahead.
If we did, I've forgotten.
This is the chapter where we get an explanation of what they are and how they work. And so, jumping a little bit ahead, it's like you have this, what's essentially a pen with a gem at one end, and it's connected to another pen with a gem. And when someone writes with the one pen, however far away the other one is, it copies it. It's like a fax machine, but magic fax machine, I guess. And so that's an interesting thing that they have in this world. And this particular one is connected to Yasna. It's like, your scribes say it's the one bound to my daughter. He's like, "Oh man, it's been weeks since her last message. When she gets into a project, she tends to ignore everything else." And he's like, I want to finish this latrine. Unconsciously, he'd been planning to make his final decision once he reached the end. But you can't ignore the chance to talk to Yasna. And so he says, "Sorry, I'm going to have to leave you. I got to talk to her." And Navani's like, "Well, I mean, I haven't talked to my daughter in months, so I'd like to go with you." And he can't say no because he's already offended her once. So, okay, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to make two dick moves, man. That'd not be cool.
And she says, "You're a kind man, Dalinar Kholin. I'm afraid that I am compelled to find you fascinating." And he's like, "My sense of honor makes me easy to manipulate. I know. There's no need to toy with me." And she's like, "I'm not trying to take advantage of you. Well, maybe I'm a little bit, but not toying with you, okay?" And then she just goes for this conversation, which I feel like is a hell of a thing to be like, "Do you know why I picked Gavilar over you all those years ago?" Which that's a hell of a thing to pull out of nowhere. Okay.
Like, whoa. Wait on. No one asked for this information, lady.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
I was having a good time breaking rocks, and you come up, you're like, "Hey, you know why I picked your brother over you?" Come on.
Not because he would become king, though that's what everybody says. I chose him because you frightened me. That intensity of yours. It scared your brother too, you know. The more we hear about like young Dalinar, the more I want that story. Like
Story of young Dalinar.
Everyone indicates he was a very different guy at an earlier point in his life, and so I'm curious about that guy. Other than, I mean, we saw him passed out drunk on the floor. Maybe that was still during that point of his life. And he's like, look, me, this is not going to work. Okay? I'm not going to dishonor my brother's memory. And we get so on his banner, he has a pair of glyphs, Coke and Linil, one in the shape of a crown, one in the shape of a tower, and that forms the family crest. Which, if you go back and look at the beginning of the chapter, that's the symbol you see. You see the tower and the crown on the shield at the beginning of Dalinar's chapters. So that's what a glyph pair looks like, in case you were curious. So he gets to where his clerks are with his magic pens, and Adolin's there. He's like, shouldn't you be inspecting? I finished that hours ago. Like, geez, how long was I hitting those rocks? All right. And Adolin
He had some things to work out, did Dalinar.
Yeah. You do what you gotta do, man. Adolin wants to talk to him in private, and he's like, not right now. Don't have any time. I'm going to talk to you. Just give me a little more time. He's like, okay, but there's something else I want to ask you. This is Danlin. She came into camp yesterday, and she has been calling on me, and I took the liberty of offering her a position among your clerks while she's here. Which, yeah, okay, thanks for giving your random girls jobs working for me, but okay. And he says, Dalinar's like, what about... And Adolin goes, Malasha didn't work out. Even though this same day, a few hours ago, he was thinking, Malasha, she's pretty interesting, but Danlin. So apparently in the last few hours, he's decided that didn't work out. He's going to go after the new one.
Yeah. I wonder how many of these women know that it didn't work out.
Right? That's what I was thinking.
Does he just move on, or does he see him walking by and they're like, buzz off, and he's like, oh, okay, I guess that didn't work out.
And he's like, she's been here since yesterday, and you've already got her calling on you? And he's like, I mean,
Yeah.
I have a rep I got to maintain, my man. Players got to play.
No!
Is that what we're saying?
No, don't say that. Fuck.
Oh, gosh.
You're telling me. Whoa, wait.
What?
You just told me.
That's my watch. My watch talking to me. All right.
Special
What's
guest
happening?
This episode.
Siri.
Yeah.
Even the watch is sick of Adelin's womanizing bullshit.
It's customary to eventually choose just one woman to court, right? And then he thinks you're going to need a good wife, perhaps very soon. And Adolin's like, yeah, when I'm old and boring, maybe.
Oh, Adolin. Precious, precious baby Adolin. You are the worst.
And Dalinar's like, I mean, she's pretty, but geez, one day in camp? He'd spent 3 years courting the woman who'd eventually become his wife, even if he couldn't remember her face. He did remember how he pursued her. He's like, surely I loved her. I mean, I must have, right? I just don't remember. He's like, right. I got stuff to do. Brightness, Danlin, welcome among my clerks. I understand I have a communication. So this girl that he's just met, that just got into camp yesterday, he's going to let her be his writer for this communication. You're trusting people real quick, but whatever.
I was gonna say, incredibly sus. If you were a spy, this is how you get in. You go make friends with Adolin, and you're in.
Yeah, which is apparently real easy for any pretty girl to do, is to make friends with Adolin. But yes, anyway. So they turn the crystal thing to acknowledge that they're ready to proceed, and then they start getting a message from Yasna. Uncle, I presume you're well. Indeed, I'm well cared for by those around me, this is their secret code where he indicates that there's people around him he doesn't know that well. So she won't say anything too secret. And she indicates the secrets that she seeks are too obscure to be contained even in the Palladium, but I am finding hints. So she's after something. We have no idea what, but she's finding some hints. And Dalinar really wants Yasna to come back to the Shattered Plains. And I like that he puts out there that her brother is using Sadeas' cousin as his head scribe because Yasna hates Sadeas' cousin. It's like, maybe that'll get her back. And then Navani's over here like, and Dalinar's like, oh yeah, add your mom is back in the war camps.
Yeah. Also, she's in the room. Oh.
Yeah, didn't mention
Too
she was in
late.
the room.
Too
And
late.
the pen writes, send my mother my respects. Keep her at arm's length, uncle. She bites. Just burn.
It made me
Mom.
think of, although not canon in the books, it made me think of the part of the Harry Potter movie where Sirius sends Harry a letter and he's like, P.S. The bird bites.
My one went to Marge Simpson and just going, oh, it's true, but you shouldn't say it.
No, yeah, that's. And Navani's like, I'll show you how I bite. Wink, Dalinar. And Dalinar's like, oh, jeez.
I know why you'll be sad.
She says, I can't discuss my work via span read, but I'm growing increasingly concerned. There's something here hidden. Can't discuss her work via span read is interesting. Like, is it just because there's people in the room Dalinar doesn't trust that she would say something like that? Or is this like a network that can be magically hacked in some way? Like, can these communications be intercepted?
Well, it's like, yeah, like, you know, ostensibly Dalinar is not meant to be able to read.
Mhm.
So if she's transferring via writing, someone has to read it off to him, which means anyone in the room can hear what she's saying.
Yep.
That's not exactly secretive.
It is not. You are correct. And he's like, okay, but when are you coming back? I don't know. I dare not stop my research, but a time may soon come when I dare not stay away either. But anyway, I have some questions for you. Describe again for me what happened when you first met the Parshendi Patrol 7 years ago. And so we find out that Dalinar and his brother were out hunting when they first ran into the Parshendi. South of the Shattered Plains, they're out here hunting for the legendary Chasm Fiend, which they weren't even sure really existed. And they run across these guys, Parshmen, camped, free, and organized, and they carried weapons. Like, Gavilar didn't even believe it at first. Like, Parshmen there's no such thing as free Parshmen. They're servants and had always been servants. And she asks about if they had any shard blades, and he says that he only saw a Parshendi shard bearer after Gavilar's death. So he does not think they had them then. Although he also thinks, did Gavilar know that they had access to shard blades? Is that what the treaty was about? Is that the secret Yasna is looking for? And she says apparently the Parshendi picked up their language very quickly, and she wants to know, what was the first question they asked you? They wanted to see our maps. And she says, did they mention the Voidbringers? And he's like, what? No, not that I remember. She says, why? And she's like, I'd rather not say. However, I do want to show you something. Get a new piece of paper. And we have that picture that Joe and I in our digital version had chapters before this, but Dax said was after this chapter for y'all, which makes much more sense as a place to put it, right?
No, before this one.
This one, sorry.
It was before 27, before Chasm Duty.
Okay, so still not the most logical place for it, but it seems to be what we see Shallan drawing here, or at least that's my theory about it.
Yeah.
And so there's a drawing being made over the span read. And I like Dalinar's like, this is not Yasna. Whoever's drawing this has way more talent than her at drawing. And it's Aelin says that is a Chasm Fiend. I mean, it's distorted. Someone was clearly trying to draw a Chasm Fiend. This is a depiction from one of my books here. Yasna says, my new ward is quite skilled at drawing, and so I had her reproduce it for you. And Dalinar's like, geez, a new ward. It's been years since she took one of those. She always said she didn't have time. The book describes...
she's going to regret it.
Yeah, maybe. The book describes this picture as a Voidbringer. I'm not implying that the Voidbringers were the same thing as Chasm Fiends. I believe the ancient artist didn't know what one looked like, and so drew the most terrific thing that she knew of. And you can assume it's a she, because drawing is almost certainly a feminine art. And Dalinar's like, okay, I mean, how would the original artist have known what a Chasm Fiend looked like? And what does this have to do with anything? And Yasna's like, okay, gotta go now. Care for my brother in my absence. And Dalinar's like, look, things are getting difficult here. You may soon hear news that shocks you. It would be very nice if you could return and lend your aid. And she's like, I promise I'm coming back. I just can't say when. I'm most eager to see a Chasm Fiend for myself. And he's like, yeah, we'll get you a dead one. I'm not going to have what almost happened to your brother happen to you.
I want a pet.
She's like, one of these days, dear overprotective Dalinar, you're going to have to admit that your favorite niece and nephew have grown up. And he says, I'll treat you as adults as long as you act the part. That's fair. One of the most interesting things about this to me is that Dalinar really wants Yasna to come back. And he says it's like to protect Elokar, basically. Protect their family, more or less. And it's interesting to me that this is the person that he trusts most. In this society where war is kind of the center of everything, it's not he's not looking to like Adolin to protect Elokar. He's not looking even to Sadeas to protect Elokar. He looks to Elokar's sister, the like super genius scholar, and he's like, she's the one who we need here to help protect the family. Which, if you respect Dalinar's opinion by this time, maybe tells you a lot about Yasna.
Checks out.
And at the end of the call, Dalinar realizes that he's made his decision. He's going to abdicate. And it was talking to Yasna. It was talking about her dad. Gavilar had been acting weird at the end, and it almost undermined the whole kingdom. I have to stop myself before it gets that far. And then he realizes that he and Navani are in the room alone after everyone else left. And he's like, yeah, this is not appropriate. And Navani's like, why do you trust Yasna so much? Like, why do you want her to return so badly? Why do you trust my daughter so much when others almost universally revile her? And he's like, I consider their disdain for her to be a recommendation. She refused to join the devotaries because she did not believe in their teachings. Rather than compromise for appearances, she has been honest and has refused to make professions she does not believe. I find that a sign of honor. And I like the expression Navani uses, you're two pairs of nails in the same door frame. I've never heard anything like that, but I like it. And she's trying to push. She's like, we need to talk, we need to plan, Dalinar. And he's like, no, look, I'm going to abdicate. I'm stepping down as soon as I can make the arrangements, a few days at most. And she goes, this is a terrible mistake. And he says, maybe, but it's mine to make. Now, get out, please. And I also like, he can't sit in any of the chairs in the room because he's wearing his shard plate and they would break. So in the end, he just has to sit down on the floor.
Which also doesn't sound very comfortable.
No, right? I mean, it's a stone floor, as we've established. It's all stone, so can't be great. So he thinks, yeah, I'm going to tell Adolin in the morning. I'm going to announce my decision at a feast within the week, and then I'll go back to Alethkar. It was over, and that's the end of part 2.
Bum, bum, bum.
And then we move on to the interludes. We have Rissyn first. And Rissyn and Vistum they're merchants. They are from Thalana. They are Thalan merchants. And so once again, the Thalans have those names with the consonants all shoved together.
Yeah, and the sweet eyebrows.
And Rissyn's just like, what is wrong with this grass? And her Babsk is what he's called, which is kind of like, she's like his apprentice.
Yeah.
But like it's deeper than that, where he like owns her. He's like her dad essentially until her apprenticeship is done. And so he's like, I mean, you've heard about the grass, right? And how weird it is. And she's like, yeah, but I assumed that it would be like slow, not just not move at all. What is wrong with it? Also, the ground is so springy. What? He's like, oh yeah, it's called soil. It's a thing that they have.
Springy. I can't imagine always having walked on rock and then walking on dirt.
Right.
I mean, I guess you'd call it springy, but like I can't like picture it.
Yep.
And he has a device that she has to go set up that can detect when people are approaching. That's a useful device.
Very handy.
Yeah. Especially for somebody like these folks who are all traveling merchants.
Definitely want one of those for the front door. So like keep an eye out. It's like who's coming up? Is it just door-to-door salesman? Because they can fuck right off.
That's kind of what a ring camera is. It's like, hey, there's motion at your front door.
Sure.
Let's see. We can see the misted mountains. That's very Tolkien.
I was going to say that's got to be a deliberate shout out.
Yeah, I feel like. So the mountains kind of block.
They were misty. Now they're just misted.
Yeah, past tense. Exactly. The mountains kind of protect Shinovar. They like the high storms break against the mountains, and so inside Shinovar, you don't get the horrible high storm that she's like. It would just blow all of this soil right away if the high storm came through.
This is interesting to me because we've floated the possibility that the storms, the high storms, are extensions of the Shard's will. And if they can't get past these mountains and everything here looks like a normal planet, I'm like, so this area is like protected from whoever that shard is. Maybe they're trying to break through. Like at least this part of the planet is not under their influence for some reason, whether it's another shard or like their power is just barred because of those mountains. But it's like, this is an interesting little twist.
That's an interesting take on it. Yeah. Yeah. What does that say about, now we really want to know what's going on in here. And they don't even really get to go inside. They're kind of on the edge of Shinovar, and somebody comes out to meet them. But
I was really hoping they would get called rock walkers.
But the Fabrial does detect some people coming and shows you what direction they're coming from. And Vistum's like, that's going to be handy. Nice. Good range, too. And we get a group of Shin on horseback. Some of them wearing kind of bright multicolored clothing. Like she has a multicolored cloak that completely envelops this guy and trails down the side of the horse. And then guys in more subdued clothing are riding horses around him. And she's like, geez, that guy brought a lot of servants. And Vistum's like, no, those are his guards. Shin are curious folk. Here warriors are the lowliest of men, kind of like slaves. Men trade and sell them between houses by way of little stones that signify ownership, and any man who picks up a weapon must join them and be treated the same. So we saw a Shin guy who had a rock that let people boss him around. Also, that guy in the fancy robe, that's a farmer. She goes, so you're a landowner, you mean? He's like, no, he goes out every day and works the fields when he's not like doing this negotiation. They treat all farmers like that, lavish them with attention and respect. And she's just like, man, this is weird. Maybe living in this place has affected their minds. Like, she's just like, they don't think right if that's what they do. And she's also annoyed by the grass brushing her skirt. And she's like, man, if this dull grass makes me buy a new hem, I'm going to be very upset. And so then Vistum and this guy Thresh, son Isan, meet up and they start working on a trade. Vistum has metal that no rocks were broken or smelted to get this metal. Soul cast from like a bunch of trash. I have a document sealed by 5 separate Thalen notaries attesting to this, which 5 seems excessive to me, but whatever. And in trade, he's come to get some chickens. And Thresh is like, I mean, most people who come, they just want horses. They just care about horses. Why not? Why don't you want those? And Vistum says, they're too hard to care for, and there's often too poor a return on investment. Chickens are easy to care for and fetch a good price, assuming you brought the feed. And Thresh is just like, I can't believe you buy these. Like, they're not worth nearly as much as you guys think they are. And he's like, well, but this stuff is just trash. Like, the Ardents practice soul casting with garbage, because if they get food wrong, it could poison people. So they turn garbage into metal and throw it away. And Rissyn is over here like, what the hell is going on? I've never seen a negotiation like this. And Vistum ends by being like, you couldn't trade me one of those soldiers, could you? No, they can't be sold to an outsider. I'm sorry. Oh, but you traded me that one. Well, it's been nearly 7 years and still you ask. It's like, you don't know what I got for him. He was truthless. He wasn't worth anything at all. You forced me to take something and then I had to throw it in the river. Can't take money for a truthless.
This guy has no idea what he did to the kingdom.
Yeah. This is definitely seems to be a reference to Seth, Sun Volano, truthless of Shinovar. So now I guess we know probably a little bit of Seth's history in that he was owned by this guy in Shinovar and traded to Vistum for very little money. And then Vistum eventually sold him off.
But also, it's like whatever it was he did to become truthless. Like, Thresh is just like, man, I hope we never see someone like that again. So, shit, okay.
Yeah, what did Seth do? I like Vistum's like, man, that guy was the best servant I ever had. I still regret treating him. And then they're done. Like, they start to leave. And Rissyn's like, geez, that was a long, boring ride for a short exchange. But, I mean, those chickens are going to be worth good spheres. And Vistum's like, so what did you learn? And she says, the Shin are odd? It's like, no, they are different. The world's changing outside, but they're determined to remain the same. I've tried to offer them fabrials, but they find them worthless or unholy or too holy to use. I don't know, one of those. With the Shin, it can be hard to tell the difference. But no, what did you really learn? And she says, okay, so they treat being humble like Herdazians treat boasting. You both went out of your way to show how worthless your wares were. And so he's like, already you're wiser than half the men I've brought here. Here's your lesson. Never try to cheat the Shin. Be forthright, tell them the truth, undervalue your goods, and they'll love you for it, and they'll pay you for it. So maybe this guy is a good merchant. He seems to know his stuff. And then he makes her get a pot and pull up some of the grass in the soil, and she's going to take care of this grass until she learns to think of it as not being odd. She's like, why? Because it will make you a better merchant. She's like, fine. Stupid grass. She was not going to ruin a good dress for a pot of drooling, wall-staring, imbecile grass, and that was that. I love that description. It's the best.
Drooling grass.
Stupid grass.
It's called dew, Risen, not drool.
And look, then we got Axies the Collector, which is just a great name all around, I feel like.
Yeah, Ares the Collector. He's fantastic.
Axies wakes up in an alley naked. And he's like, oh, man, again. We found a little bit about him. His nails are deep blue, which is common for an Amian man. And if you look back at the map, you can see that Amia is like a big island at the far west side of the continent. And so he's like, okay, he wiggles his toes. They actually move. That's something. All right. Drops his head back to the ground, and it makes a squishy sound on some rotting garbage. He's like, okay, yeah, great. And then it says he sculpts his body so that he can no longer smell the rotting garbage. And he's like, oh, that's much better. So that's a nice ability to have.
He's fascinating.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, he's an interesting dude. He's like he's like a blue magician.
A blue magician. And then a voice says, you're still in my alley. I shall vacate it presently. When we rent one night's sleep. Finest alleyway in Kazator. He's like, oh, is that where I am then? Excellent. And so yeah, he sees that he's lying in a bunch of rotten garbage, and he's like, but it seems to be like in a pattern. This is weird. You wouldn't happen to have a spare pair of pants, would you? Axies did not recognize the location. Not surprising, considering that he'd been beaten, robbed, and left for dead. Again. The things I do in the name of scholarship. So we are in Iriali, or an Iriali city, I'm sorry. Second biggest after Ral Ilorim. Which none of this means anything to us, but okay. Although, have we heard Ral Ilorim before? No, I have to. We have heard Ral Ilorim before. I thought that was true. Yeah, Kaladin thinks about that place when he's talking to Laral, and he's like, I'd like to travel, see places like Ral Ilorim, City of Shadows. So that's in the same area, apparently.
Gotham City.
Does that make this Metropolis?
Only if you subscribe to the movies version. Let's not go there.
Yeah, no need to go. So he asks him if he has a spare pair of pants, and he's like, I'm going to guess that you don't. And if you did, I suggest you wear them yourself. Is that like a sack that you're wearing? You owe me rent and payment for destroying the temple of the northern god. He's like, huh. I don't remember destroying any temples. I usually remember that kind of thing. You took out half of Halpern Street, number of homes as well. I'll let that slide. They've been wicked lately. And he finally figures out, oh, like the heaps of rotting vegetables and stuff are arranged like a city. Okay, got it. And then he steps on something, and that was the bakery. Oh, sorry. The family was away. Oh, good. They were worshiping at the temple. The one I smashed with your head? Yeah. This is great.
It's a very good, like, that's good. That's bad.
Yeah. It's one of those. But I do like he realizes that it's a crazy homeless guy who has decided he's god of this city of garbage that he made in the alley.
Trash city, let's go.
And the guy's like, I'm trying to decide if you're a herald or a voidbringer. And Axies just is immediately playing into it. Like, I'm a voidbringer, obviously. I mean, I did destroy the temple. Only the sacred cloth can banish me. And since you don't, oh, what's that you're holding? And he tricks this. He makes the guy think that this is the sacred cloth because he needs a cloth to wrap around himself because apparently they have, decency laws in this town.
So just this town, any other town you can walk around naked and it's fine, but
maybe
this one
some of them. He doesn't say. He does call out that these guys care about that kind of thing. So maybe some of them don't. Maybe if you're out in the Pure Lake, they're just like, whatever, man, do your thing.
Yeah, come out to the Pure Lake. Take off your pants. It's fine.
You do you, bro.
Yeah. I mean, what do you need pants for anyway?
Right? Yeah. And so the guy throws the blanket at him, and he runs off with it. And lo, the beast was banished. And Axies is like, and lo, the foul beast avoided imprisonment for public indecency. Which sadly is not the truth long term. And I like that people are staring at him, but not because he's wrapped in just like an old ratty sheet. Apparently people around here, it's warmer than a lot of the continent, so they don't wear all that much. And also he has a lot of tattoos, and but the men here like to paint patterns. And so that's not even that unusual. What's weird is the blue nails, the crystalline blue eyes. Amians, even Sia Amians, were rare. I guess implying that there's another kind of Amian. Or maybe it was because his shadow was cast the wrong way. What can you do?
That's weird.
When the curse of kind, capital, what happened as it happened. So apparently he can rearrange the tattoos on his body, at will. And so he makes notes on his body, which is useful because he gets robbed and left naked in alleyways to die. So he's not going to be able to hold on to a notebook at all.
Dude's watched Memento one too many times.
Right? Yeah. Although we do have the note
Yeah.
that's like, man, I hope when I got drunk I didn't write my notes somewhere inconvenient like last time.
Had to use a mirror and everything.
And a bathing attendant.
Very confused bathing attendant.
Hey, buddy, what does
How
this
did
say
you
on
get
my...
your notes there?
Yeah, right. Hey, buddy, what does this say on my ass? For a good time call.
So, test successful, the note says. Have noted spren who appear only when one is severely intoxicated. Further testing may be needed to prove that they were more than a drunken hallucination. And he's like, oh yeah, that's what I've been looking for. He'd heard them called sud spren in stories, but that seems silly. Intoxication spren? No. Ale spren? Yeah, let's go for that. Personally, I kind of like sud spren, but maybe that's me.
Drunk Spren was right there.
But apparently they only appear in Erie, and not very frequently, because he's gotten drunk lots of times and only found them once. And so we find out a little bit more about spren. Some of them are elusive. Even the common ones can refuse to appear sometimes in some areas, which makes it hard when you're a guy whose life work is to catalog and study every single type of spren. And he likes it out here because these guys are not as prudish as the Vorin people and not inclined to bickering or fighting like them. So that makes it easier to do his research. And then we see that giant spren that we talked about at the beginning. It takes the shape of a large jet of water, one of the at least 100 feet high, one of the largest spren he's ever seen. Which implies that there are other spren that big, which sounds scary. Although I don't think we've ever seen spren like physically interact with, well, except for Syl. But there's no indication that they can like hurt you or something, even if they're enormous. The column sprouted 4 long arms and then fingers and thumbs, and then it starts to like have faces. These are really weird. I mean, the faces shifting makes me think of like Ko, the face stealer.
Ugh.
But it's also like just a big jet of water with hands and faces. It's very strange. And it also leaves the people around feeling drained. He's like, why is that? What would be causing that? And then a street urchin runs past and yanks the wrap off of his waist. And he's like, what a bother. There are guards nearby, I assume. Oh, yep, there they are. 4 of them. Wonderful. Well, it appears I'll have another chance to search for captivity spren. Odd how those had eluded him after all these years. Despite his numerous incarcerations, he was beginning to consider them mythological. But 2 new spren in as many days. At this rate, it will only take a few more centuries to complete my research. And he's happily whistling to himself as the guards come. So yeah, there you go. Axies is a fun, carefree kind of dude who's like, oh, getting arrested for public indecency again. What you gonna do, man?
Yeah, let's just stop the rest of the book and just follow him around for a while.
Find out more about spren. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So those are our chapters for this time. Predicaments. What do you think is going to happen next?
Gosh,
we're moving into part 3.
Yeah, I'm pretty dry this week on predicaments. I don't know. It's just we're ending a part. I mean, I guess I could say maybe that Dalinar is not going to be able to retire for some reason. I don't know. Like Adeline majorly messes up, or when he goes to retire, Elhokar's like, I don't accept, or I don't know. It just, something about it doesn't sit right. But that's really all I got this week. I mean, I'm looking forward to this next interlude and see what old Seth's up to, but other than that, not a lot going on right now. Not a lot has changed. Just the Dalinar thing saying he's going to retire, so it's pretty much all I got.
I mean, I feel like we would kind of hope that he doesn't actually retire at this point, given that everyone in the group, I think, at this point is liking Dalinar a lot more than Adolin. So Dalinar leaving and leaving Adolin in charge, I think, would be a downer. And you brought up Elhokar, and I'm just like, I feel like that's an angle that he hasn't considered as much as he maybe should. Is if he's not here protecting Elhokar, then you're going to leave Sadeas in charge of that? Is that, you trust him that much?
Yeah, I guess he does. because they've both been working towards that end for this entire time.
Yeah.
I don't really have a lot this week. I've really only got one, which is fairly minor, but I don't know how it's going to go, and that is this new girlfriend of Adelyn's is a spy, Danlin.
Danlin,
Yeah, I think. Oh, she showed up in town yesterday with her High Prince dad, who I don't think we've ever heard of him before. And
no, I don't know if he's a high prince. He's a noble guy, but yeah.
Bright Lord.
Yeah.
They used one of the titles to refer to him when
I think it was Bright Lord
when Adolin was referring to. I was like, oh, who's this? Like, who's this like new like lord who's just showed up? Who is his daughter who in less than a day has already latched onto Adolin? I get the feeling that Sadeas has planted her there, exploiting Adolin's complete dumbassery when it comes to ladies, in order to have a spy to check on Dalinar, and then this is all gonna and then he's gonna find out straight away. It's like, wait, Dalinar's retiring? What the fuck? And like, well, this changes things. Okay, and then because I feel like Sadeas's plans are hinging on Dalinar being where he is until Sadeas needs him to not be there. So if he finds out Dalinar's retiring, giving over to Adolin, who is very well known to hate Sadeas's guts, Sadeas gonna be like, shit, this is gonna throw off all my plans. Oh god, I need to convince Dalinar to come back.
That would be ironic, trying to have to go and like try to make up to Dalinar.
Yeah, it's like, I need you to be in place for when I accuse you of trying to murder the king. I can't do that if you fucking retire. And your son challenges me to a duel in like 27 minutes of getting the title.
Because he would, right?
He absolutely will.
I think that's, given what we've seen, we had a discussion about how this is they start trusting her immediately, and this is the perfect area for a spy. So I agree that prediction makes a lot of sense, given what we know.
Yeah. The speed in which he showed up has already latched onto him. It's like, I know he's a womanizer, but even he's got other duties to take care of. He doesn't have time for this.
He spent hours today, like, reviewing the troops and stuff. So, like, how long could you possibly have known this girl? Yeah, no, fair point.
That was a lie. Oh, I finished those inspections hours ago. Son, it's been 20 minutes. I found a girl.
Yeah. Like, actually, the inspections should have taken about 3 more hours. I cut them short because Danlin showed up. But that's neither here nor there, really.
Yeah.
Yes, I am in agreement about our new friend, the spy. That's honestly the only thing that makes sense to me with that situation. Maybe just thinking about how Dalinar is supposed to be trusting Sadeas. I wonder, if it was Sadeas's spy, maybe there's a plan to put Dalinar in somewhere else. I don't know, to achieve something, get him out of the way to, I don't know, expose something else. I don't know. I haven't really thought it through that much, I guess. But having Dalinar then resign might cause a bit of a disruption to whatever Sadeas is trying to do. Sadeas doesn't seem to be a great guy, and it does seem like he's setting Dalinar up for a bit of a downfall. But if he's supposed to be trusting him, maybe it's for a reason. Maybe there's something else at play that we don't know about yet. So I don't know. I don't know how that. I'll try and flesh that one out as we go through the next few weeks. Maybe this very large spren at the end. So I'm wondering if this has got something to do with like whatever Syl is. Maybe all the faces that flash up are like these different spren that are linked to it or something. I don't know, because I'm still convinced that Syl is something different, even though we didn't see her this week. Yeah, I don't think Syl's a normal spren. I'm not a normal spren, and maybe this thing are linked. Not knowing anything about this really big giant spren, but maybe there's a few of them, and these faces are all the faces. Like I would be interested to see if one of the faces like was Syl's face, but it sounds like they move pretty quickly and you can't capture that. Yeah, I really, really hope that we get to see more of our collector, Axies the collector. He was very cool, and it sounds like he's got a pretty long lifespan. He's not worried about his research taking a really, really long time.
Right.
But he could just be going as far as he can take it, I guess. But yeah, that's probably all I've really got this week.
Okay. I like trying to go for the connection because you're right. Something is clearly different about Syl. And if you believe her, even she doesn't understand quite what is going on and why she's different. It kind of disturbs her.
Yeah.
So we've got her as kind of a weird spren, and then you get the giant thing as kind of a weird spren that we're not even sure what the hell kind of spren it is. So that is a good place to try to make a connection, just because on some level we're like, does anything connect to this, to Syl or this thing? Like it's hard to find anything at this point.
Yeah, and look, maybe through Axies we'll get an idea of like what Syl is. Maybe we'll learn more about different types of spren that he's researching, because I mean it did seem a bit like everything had an associated spren, but like it really seems like everything's got an associated spren, and they just show up when they want. So it might not look like it's got one, but it clearly does. That shows up every once in a while. So yeah, thousands of them.
Spren are one of those things that, or maybe kind of the biggest, because of how often we see them and how little we know about them. It's like, this is a thing that we would like more explanation of, please.
Yeah, absolutely. What is their purpose? What are they doing?
What is Spren?
I don't understand.
Yeah. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we'll never find out. How weird would that be? All right. Okay. Let's move. We'll do one email, and we got a message on Discord that we'll do. And then we don't have any new reviews or new patrons this time, so we'll hit those things. So we got a message on Discord from Sasha. It says, the line about Addy being a kind and generous man is why I've long thought of Addy as being kind of a proto-Marsh. It's almost the same story, isn't it? A good man is warped by the power of ruin into becoming a monster. I can imagine Addy in the earlier days slipping between relishing death and destruction and moments of lucidity where he's horrified at what he's becoming. It's possible that he took up ruin because he thought he'd be able to counter its effects, which again is reminiscent of Marsh becoming an obligator to save the Ska. Unlike Marsh, Addy doesn't get a moment of redemption. He dies as ruin. It's just so tragic. The scene in Secret History where we briefly see him post-death, he seems so confused, like there hasn't been enough of him left to even know what's been going on these millennia. And then Kelsier hits him while he's still trying to figure out where he is. I just hope they have good therapists in the beyond. Anyway, wuzzing to the time of next, and I'm glad you're enjoying The Way of Kings, Sasha.
Don't you do it. Don't you dare make me feel sympathy for Addy.
I was about to say, I really don't feel sympathy for him. Like, he was, whatever he used to be, like, he chose to pick up the shard, I assume. Maybe it was foisted on them. I don't know the exact way that worked, but
maybe he was like last in line, and all that was left was like I got this shitty ruin power.
Yeah, I was good, ruin or odium. Which one am I gonna choose? I don't know. I guess ruin.
It's a very interesting thought.
It could. It seems in Brandon's wheelhouse to me to have us hate ruin and then try to make us feel sorry for him in the end. So I could kind of buy that being the way it goes.
I can buy feeling sympathy for Atty for being brainwashed by the god power he took on. I can buy that. I can 100% buy that more than the Lord Ruler was doing things because he cared.
I can see how that would be easier to accept.
I'll take Addy apologists over Rashek apologists any day.
Fair. Freaking Rashek. Like, I'm still, they named a town after him in the New World. Like, what the hell? All right, so thank you, Sasha. That's for this thought-provoking bit of consideration here. Appreciate that. The next, the email that we have a couple emails. I think I'm just going to go into one because this one's kind of a longer one. This one is from Steven. It says, hello, Sanderlanche crew. I discovered your podcast last fall as I was looking for Cosmere podcast to help me unpack all the details of Brendan's world, especially how his books, like The Lost Metal, are becoming more and more interconnected. It's taken me a solid year to get caught up, and I have had a blast going back through the books with you all. A year seems like a reasonable amount of time, yeah. I have read pretty much everything Brandon has ever written, but like some other folks who have emailed, I had not yet read White Sand. So I took the opportunity to read along with you and predig my way along with the crew. Overall, I agree with the group's general thoughts that it was mostly just okay. I wasn't blown away by any of the twists, but it was a fine story and fun to learn about a new magic system and get more insight into Chris's backstory. Even though it's been several months since you all read it, I thought I'd share my best, worst, most entertaining predicaments just for fun. My best, I'm proud to say that I called the true identity of the Lord Beggar almost immediately. The bandaged face got my wheels turning right away. I can kind of see that.
Nice.
Yeah. My worst, I had this big predicament that I'm going to call the grand alcohol theory. They kept going on about how alcohol and sand mastery don't mix. So I had this big theory about how alcohol makes sand masters temporarily lose their powers, but then it would allow them to level up later. I was with Dak in that I suspected the redheaded assistant was involved and snuck alcohol into the ceremonial drink before the initial ambush. I thought the guild's missing money was because they were controlling alcohol production and distribution, and I was convinced that the constantly drunk Lord Admiral was going to be revealed as some kind of super sandmaster by the end of the book. Alas,
Man, what a twist that would have been.
I know, right? Like this big alcohol behind the scenes thing. Alas, all of this turned out to be hilariously wrong. It definitely gave me an appreciation for your predigging skills, and I hope that this gives you a chance to chuckle at someone else's predicaments for once. I like the thought that went into this theory, though. That's finding alcohol connections. I'm looking forward to revisiting Stormlight with you all, and thanks for the work you put into making such an entertaining show. Wasing to the time of next, Stephen. So yeah, thanks. I like hearing your predictions as you went through White Sand. That was kind of interesting. We don't... Let's see. Yeah, we have one more, but I'll save that one for next time. For next time, speaking of, we're going to read 3 more chapters. So that will be Interlude 6, and then chapters 29 and 30. So as we've already mentioned, the Seth Interlude, and then chapters 29 and 30. Part 3, in case you were curious, does once again include Shallan as a viewpoint character. So we'll be getting back to her.
It's been so long.
It's been long. No. Okay. If you'd like to send us emails, the address is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram and X and Patreon, where hopefully by the time that – no, I'm not going to say hopefully. By the time this goes up, you will be getting my reactions to Defiant. I've recorded the first 5 episodes that will be going up for that. One of them should have gone up the Thursday before we recorded this. Unfortunately, I did not have time to edit it before that point, so it did not go up. We just skipped a new thing on Thursday, but I'm hoping to have that ready before Tuesday. Coming up on Christmas has just been a crazy busy time, so I'm doing what I can do. So the Defiant stuff will start going up, like I said, by the time this episode comes out. Hopefully the first one will be up. Well, the first few. It's been interesting so far. It's as the 4th book in the series, this one kind of hits the ground running and hasn't let up much at all. It's kind of like I almost feel like we're getting us a book of Sanderlanche in that book. So I won't say more than that. But if you want to hear my reactions, check out our Patreon. Music by Miracle of Sound. Remember, 3 more chapters for next time. So Interlude and then chapters 29 and 30, the first 2 chapters of part 3. Part 3, by the way, is called Dying. So that's very uplifting part name. So if you're reading along, read those with us. We'll definitely have some interesting things to discuss there. And wasing to the time of next. Colo? P.S. Fasher. Crabs ahoy!
Ghost of